We know you want to hear more of what Andrew and John have to say. Don't worry, we will. But first, let's hear what they got into earlier today on Kincaid and South Tunis.
The great Cam York, John Kincaid, Dan Vladar, the hero. Give him the freaking key to the city.
That performance from Dan Vladar last night will be burned into my brain forever.
42 shot attempts by the Penguanos. How many did he allow?
I believe the number is 0. Which, by the way, is a number.
A shutout performance by Dan Vladar, man.
In a 6-game series, he had 2 shutouts of the Penguins.
And oh, by the way, in 7 periods.
I mean,
because they had to go to overtime last night, which at that point I was going, yo, please, somebody end this. Obviously, want the Flyers to end it. At 4 o'clock wake-up call is not really going to be beneficial to me.
No.
Cam York nets it, and the Flyers win 1-0.
Did you enjoy it?
No. I enjoyed the game-winning goal.
Right. My buddy Mark came over from next door around the start of the 3rd period. He comes over, and we're sitting there. We watch the next 2 periods, and I'm like, I'm not enjoying this.
No.
It is excruciating.
It was painful.
It's nerve-wracking, but the end result makes it so worth it.
Now, back to the show.
Oh, man, we've been celebrating the Flyers win all day today. We're also previewing Sixers-Celtics Game 6, just letting your inner child come out. And don't worry about analysis. Don't worry about how they can win. Just root your hearts out for the Sixers to win tonight. Hopefully force a Game 7, which we'll be able to get on Saturday. It's been a lot of fun, and we want to hear from you about it at 610-632-0975. We're going to speak with Kevin Kurz coming up in a few minutes, but before we do that, we have to check our very serious poll of the day. Dr. Avidan Appel, Iron Mountain Men's Health, he takes his craft very seriously. It's why there's a lot of happy gentlemen all over the Delaware Valley.
I would say, why do you just say happy gentlemen?
Well, yeah, I mean, look.
I would say happy ladies, too.
There is benefits. What's the poll, Connor?
Yeah, this is very important. We're trying to help people out today. With the Philadelphia Flyers eliminating the Pittsburgh Penguins, what do you believe Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang will do for retirement? Still leading the way, 45% of responders saying embellishment coaching, 33% are saying Golden Girls reboot, 14% are thinking they'll pick up some golf, and only 8% saying the Penguins arena usher is next in line for them. We do have a write-in from Philly John in Tennessee who says a Three Stooges franchise reboot or start a new business for stand-in funeral extras because they cry like babies.
That's actually a good one.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
There was a lot of crying.
Oh my gosh, crying?
Guys,
come on.
But I will give Malkin the credit getting off the bus. And the kid,
he was great.
Sully, who called in earlier today, his 13-year-old kid goes, "Malkin, you suck." And he just kind of was like, like he laughed it off. It was great.
Like, okay.
It was great. I loved it. I thought that was great.
And by the way, the NFL teams, like when they come into these hotels, they get heckled too. They get heckled into going into hotels.
Oh, yeah.
Everything. They're used to it.
Did you see Derek White last week?
No.
With the Celtics. Mm-hmm. So Derek White obviously plays for the Celtics. He's hit a couple big threes in his time against the Sixers. They stay, the 4 seasons?
Yeah.
Right? And believe it or not, there's construction being done in Center City.
That's shocking. I've never heard that before.
So Derek White's, maybe he went to go get coffee. I don't know. He was just out and about, and one of the construction workers starts heckling him.
Really?
And he laughed it off. He talked about it in his pregame media availability.
That's good.
They're like, what's it like being in the city of Philadelphia? He's like, man, they really care here. I was getting heckled by construction workers today, and somebody found the video and they reposted it. It was cool, man.
One little quick one. So last night I go get a little pizza 316.
Good place.
Great spot. And so I walk in, I'm talking to the owners and hanging out, and in comes an Eagle legend, a former tight end, one of the greatest of all time. So it's not Zach Ertz. So who do you think walks into the place? It's Westchester.
Brent Selleck.
Yes. So Brent walks in. He brings comes in for a slice of pizza. So we're standing there. This kid from Westchester walks over, Westchester University, and he says, "Hello." And he shakes Brent Selleck's hand. He goes, "So glad to meet you. It's like such an honor to meet you," and everything like that. And the owner says, "Well, you going to meet John too?" And the kid turns to me, and he has no idea. And he looks at me, and he goes, "Oh, thank you, sir." And he shakes my hand, and he goes, "You must have played before my time." And I thought Brent Selleck was going to lose a kidney laughing at me.
What position would John Kincaid have played?
I have no idea.
Long snapper.
I said tailback.
Kicker. Hey, I was bigger I was taller than Tommy McDonald, who's a Eagles legend, and I was proud to, Mr. McDonald, legend of all time, taller than him. I mean, but I didn't think he was thinking I was that old. But he looked at me and he goes,
Jackson,
but he shakes my hand and he goes, "Oh, sir, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." He goes, "You must have played before my time." I was like, "Oh, there we go." So there we go.
You were playing for the Steagles. You were wearing the blue and yellow jerseys
here's
back
Brent
in the day.
Selleck, real estate legend of Chester County, just chuckling at me.
By the way, if Bayless gives another do it for.
What's that?
Do it for Justin Anderson.
Oh.
First ever member of Club Tyrone. In case people don't remember.
That's right.
He was the inaugural member.
He was the inaugural
member of Club Tyrone was Justin
That's good
Anderson.
knowledge by you and good memory.
All right, joining us now. We've talked to him a lot throughout the course of the season. He does a great job covering the Flyers for The Athletic. And, man, I can only imagine what last night was like. Obviously, he's a reporter, Johnny. So, like our man Anthony DeCecco, it's a little bit different. But feeling the vibe of that building, I imagine, was special. Kevin Kurz joins us. Kevin, good morning.
How you guys doing?
We're doing great. We're partying, right? Last night was so much fun. But leading up to the game-winning goal, it was so much anxiety because the Penguins were outplaying the Flyers pretty much the entire game. Your thoughts on the game leading up to that game-winning goal by Cam York?
As great as Vladar was, and he deserves the bulk of the credit for keeping the Penguins off the board there, it's kind of remarkable that just one of those shots from the outside didn't deflect off of a leg or a stick in front, or just there was some sort of weird bounce. I mean, maybe the Penguins just used up their hockey gods giving them some weird bounces on some of those goals early in the season series in games 4 and games 5, because they were throwing a ton at the net. There was traffic there. I mean, I don't know how one of those didn't go in. So, and again, obviously Vladar made some great saves, and he deserves most of the credit here. But, you can't say that they didn't also get at least a little bit lucky, considering how much time they were spending in their own zone.
Oh, my God, yeah.
It's the breakout was a bit of a problem out of their own zone during this series. Was that something the Penguins were doing, or, Kev, is it something that you were noticing maybe down the stretch that could continue into this Carolina series?
Well, it sure looks like the Penguins' forecheck was a whole lot better after those first 3 games. And I thought it was interesting, Jamie Drysdale after the game said that in the dressing room, they felt like they were playing a whole different team on the other side in the Penguins for the last 3 games. And I think that's where it starts, is that they were having some trouble with that. And they've had trouble with that in some games past. But, and conversely, I think the Flyers are having trouble getting in and pressuring the Penguins. So, those two things are related, but, I mean, it's going to be tougher against the Hurricanes. Carolina comes at you in waves. It seems like it almost doesn't even matter who's over there. They're just such a well-coached team under Rod Brind'Amour. And even if you go back to the last game of the regular season, it was meaningless, but they were really coming at the Flyers. Or it was meaningless for Carolina. The Flyers needed to win it, but even in that game, when they were dressing a lineup full of a lot of AHL players, they gave the Flyers everything they could handle. So you just have to go back to that game and see just how well they're coached, how well they execute their system, and how difficult this second round is going to be.
Kevin, looking ahead to the next round, in your view, where do you feel the Flyers have the advantage?
Well, they had the advantage in goal. There's no question about that. I don't think that was what we thought coming into this series, is that their biggest advantage over the Penguins was going to be their goaltending, and that proved to be the case. That might be their only advantage, frankly. 5-on-5, Carolina is always one of the best teams in the league. The Flyers' power play still didn't inspire all that much confidence in the series against the Penguins. Now the penalty kill got better. That was encouraging. That came through in a couple of big moments, particularly last night. No one's going to pick the Flyers to win this series. Let's just say that right now. Even Rick Tocchet even joked about it a little bit after the game last night when they were talking about the whole 3.8% chance they had of making the playoffs at the Olympic break. He said something along the lines of, what are they going to give us a chance to beat the Hurricanes? 0.2%? And he's probably not far off. But listen, it's the playoffs. I certainly don't think you count them out. They might be able to take advantage a little bit of the fact that Carolina's going to have had such a long layoff after sweeping Ottawa. They've probably got to win one of those first 2 down there, and game 1 might be their best opportunity because they'll at least be, somewhat fresher than the Hurricanes, just in that they'll have played a little bit more recently, and sometimes that does make a difference in these sorts of series.
So you bring up Tocchet making the joke yesterday after the game. Kevin Kurz of The Athletic joining us here on Kincaid and Sal Chunas. Earlier today, we were talking about house money. We're just happy that they're there. We were happy that they made the playoffs to begin with, and then, wow, they won the series. Let's go. What's the mindset like in that locker room? Because I would imagine, to a man, they're not saying, we're just happy to be here.
No, I feel like that's always sort of a disconnect, right? And not just in hockey, maybe in all sports, because, you tell anybody in that room they don't have a chance against the Hurricanes, they're going to tell you, get the hell out of here, right? I mean, they want to go on a run. They feel like they came together at the right time, and they made that late playoff push, and they got in, and now they've won 4 of their first 6 playoff games. They're going to be confident going in. I don't think there's any question about that. And, they're learning lessons along the way, and I think that's the most important thing to remember here. And even Travis Konechny said it, next time we're in overtime, we're going to know that we've got to maybe take a little chances a little bit earlier. We can't spend all that time in our own zone, or else there's going to, some sort of disaster could happen. So, they seem to be quick learners, right? Whether it's Porter Martone or, even Matvei Michkov, you have to give him credit for playing well after he came out in Game 5. Cam York gets the game winner, right? I mean, these guys are all young guys that are just learning how to wade through this thing. And I think they're going to take a lot of lessons out of that Pittsburgh series. I mean, that it doesn't get much more stressful than what they went through last night. I mean, you're on the verge of blowing a 3-0 lead, and as well as they've played down the stretch and in the early part of that series, if you go into Game 7, no one's expecting you to win that Game 7. The pressure is going to be ramped up even higher, and it still would have been embarrassing to get reverse swept by the Penguins, even with all the good things they had done. So, I think that's what would, if I was a fan, that would give me the most hope. Is this team does seem to be learning quickly, and they just went through a whole heck of an experience there, getting past the Penguins, and they came through it with a win.
Could the Flyers have the goaltending edge against Carolina?
Yeah, they definitely do. What Vladar did was pretty remarkable. He had never played a playoff game before, and for as well as he played in the regular season, the playoffs are a whole different animal. You never know how a goaltender is going to react to playoff hockey, right? How many goaltenders have we seen in the past that are great in the regular season and then struggle in the playoffs? I mean, you go to Connor Hellebuck in Winnipeg before the Olympics, that was his reputation, right? He would always come up small in the playoffs after playing so well in the regular season. But Vladar wasn't just him, the same old goalie that he was in the regular season. He took his game to another level. I mean, 2 shutouts. I think it was like a .937 save percentage in the 6 games. That will 100% be the Flyers' biggest advantage on paper.
Kevin, last thing, and look, you cover the Flyers for The Athletic. You don't cover the Flyers fans, right? But you have been in that building, and you saw the rebirth in Game 3, first time in 8 years where the Flyers had a game on home ice. You saw it again last night. You saw the Flyers win it. Just sort of talk about your experiences with any fans you've communicated with, whether it's social media, whether it's walking around the building, and that vibe that is, it's come back, and it's a beautiful story. The Flyers winning's a beautiful story, but seeing that rebirth of Flyers fandom for a lot of people is beautiful itself.
I mean, it's not even in the building for me. It's more just in like my everyday life, right? Because I grew up here and I left in 2010 for 12 years, and I came back. And, when I came back, I don't think I fully realized how far off the radar the Flyers were on the local sports radar, right? And it's been interesting to me to see, maybe some of my friends texting me about them and their kids coming around to watching the Flyers now, and just walking around the city and seeing so much Flyer stuff. And so, I think it's not surprising to me, because I grew up here. I know what this town's all about in terms of how they support their local teams. But I think it helps too that it's a young team that's growing together, and you've got a couple young players that burst on us. I mean, Porter Martone gave this fan base a huge jolt. I think not just the people that were paying attention to Flyers, but those that were just maybe casual fans. I mean, you see this guy come up and score all these big goals down the stretch. he looks like a future star, right? And, obviously Matvey Michkov is still here, and I know he had a little bit of an up-and-down season, but he's still a guy that there's a lot of hope for. So I just think the fact that it's a young team, they're growing together, I think anyone that watches the interviews or sees how they interact with each other knows that it's a fun group. They do get along, they're playing for each other, and I think that sort of helped capture the fans back a little bit here, and it's going to be fun to see. It's going to be fun to see it keep going. Frankly,
awesome stuff. Another series of content ahead for you, Kevin.
Thanks,
we appreciate
Kev.
the time, man.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
There is Kevin Kurz, covers the Flyers.
That's awesome.
For the Athletic. All right, let's relive some of the 6-game series. Not just Game 6. Game 6, we know that Darth Vladar, 42 shots, 42 saves. Flyers win in 6. Flyers win 1-0. Cam York with the game winner. But we want to relive that entire series where the Flyers, for the first time in 8 years, got to play on home ice. For the first time in 6 years, got to play playoff hockey to begin with. Here it is how it sounded on the Fanatic over the course of the last 2 weeks.
Here's Porter Martone. He's got a man going to the net. Martone spins into the right wing circle. Looks at the net with a shot. He scores! Oh, Porter Martone! The kid does it again in his first playoff game. And Martone has given the Flyers a 2-goal lead with just over 2.5 minutes to play. At the left point, Malkin looking, gives it up. Penguins in front. Saved by Vladar. It's in the corner. Pittsburgh in front. They can't do it. The Flyers pick it up and clear. And the Flyers win for the 12th time in their last 14 road games. These upstart Flyers surprised by many to be here. The Flyers don't get that. There shouldn't be any surprise. They've been one of the best teams at the end of the season, and they win Game 1 on the road 3-2. On the faceoff, far circle of the Philadelphia end. Again, Couturier this time can't win it. Pittsburgh does. Erik Karlsson shoots one that hit a body, went to the far corner. Glove there by Sanheim. He couldn't clear on the backhand, but the Flyers get into Couturier. They break out onto the ice. 2-on-1. Couturier gets it in front. Here's Luke Glendening with the empty net. He scores, and the Flyers are going to pull up with a 3-0 lead over the Penguins with just over 2 minutes to play. And the Flyers are going to come out of Pittsburgh with 2 hard-fought wins in the first 2 games of this series. Middle point, tries to shot, deflected right out the loose puck and dish right back into him by Porter Martone. Martone will feed to Drysdale. Secrets with a one-timer. He scores! The power play goal by Trevor Secrets. Now you want to see a building go wild. The Flyers have tied the game. Novak on the near half wall. Pressure, Tippett shoveled at the center. Tippett's going to get to it. Looking at the empty net. He scores! Oh, and Tippett ices it. Puts it into the empty goal. And the Flyers are going to win Game 3 and take a commanding 3-0 series lead. Back for that, the first one there. A centering pass, Smith on the backhand. Vladar drags the right pad, gets it covered. No whistle yet. It's still loose. And the Penguins trying to knock that puck in, blow it down. It's in behind the Flyer netminder, but stays out. Now the referee apparently didn't lose sight of it. How the hell that's possible, I don't know. But he let the play continue for a long time before he blows it dead. Flyers win the faceoff. Here's Cam York again. Over the Matvey Michkov. Michkov hits it back across at the line. York with a shot. They score! Cam York from the point of the Flyers win it in overtime. And they're headed to the second round. Cates was out in front. And the Flyers start the party in South Philadelphia as they send the Pittsburgh Penguins packing in overtime.
And that's how it sounded. Great job, Connor Thomas. Great job, Tim Saunders. What an incredible series for the Flyers. And now we go into the series. We talk house money. Kevin Kurz goes, yeah, nobody in that team's going to say that. They think they belong. And look, good for them, man. I love that. I love that mentality. And we'll find out soon when Game 1 will be. John's keeping an eye on
It's the 2 games tonight. There is 2 games tonight. Minnesota has a chance to close out tonight. Anaheim has a chance to close out tonight. If they both win, then there's a prime time. There's national TV broadcast spot that has to be filled on Saturday because the NHL would have no games on Saturday, and they have a primetime spot to be filled.
And what's been the number 1 most watched team?
The Philadelphia Flyers have been a huge hit. Now, Pittsburgh's part of that.
Sure.
So there it is. So they got a part of that.
Pittsburgh's not playing anymore. How about that,
There we
Johnny?
go.
The Flyers are. All right, what do we have on the Davis on the text line? Feel the Davis difference. You can check them out in Burlington.
Now, that's not the only Game 6 we're worried about. That was a nice win, but we need to help out Wes from Sellersville, who has a bit of a dilemma.
Okay.
He says he needs some advice. 2 tickets to tonight's game. Planned on taking my son, but he's 8, and he's got a bedtime. His first playoff game would be tonight if he went, but the only other Sixers game he's ever been to, he saw Embiid drop 70. It's going to be tough to convince Mom that the 8 p.m. tip with the bedtime is worth it.
All right.
Yes.
Is it worth digging in against the
Can
Yes.
we call Mom?
I would call, yeah.
Can we call Mom?
I guess, yeah.
Get Mom.
Have
Get Mom on the
call
phone.
in.
No. Ask him. Can we call Mom?
My dad had a very strict rule. I'll take you to the game. You cannot complain tomorrow morning. And
You're getting up for school. You meet all your obligations. That was the rule.
and I followed the rule, man. Like, the Phillies game 3, that World Series game didn't start till 10 o'clock.
We'll call Mom before the end of the show. We will absolutely call Mom before the end of the show if he puts us in touch with her, and we will tell Mom to send that kid to the game.
Sounds good. Speaking of Mom, by the way, a very happy birthday to my mom.
Happy birthday, Connor's
Happy
mom.
birthday, Mom. Love you.
She's
even
a
though you're a
sweetheart.
Vikings fan.
Well, that's
love
more
you
reason
very,
to
very
love her.
much.
It's more reason to love her. She needs you.
She let
Thank
me
you
go
for
to the
Jonathan Grenard.
game. Yeah, appreciate that.
It's her birthday, and yet she's gifting us. That's wonderful.
She's the best.
All right, coming up next, Jim Jackson. You'll hear the call again. It was great. The game winner for Cam York. He joins us to talk more about
Sharp-dressed
this
man
Flyer
last night,
series
too.
and the next series against the Canes. It is Kincaid and Saltunis, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Kincaid and Saltunis, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
You just heard the promo, Middays with March, coming your way at 10 o'clock. They'll continue the fun, celebrating the Flyers win last night, ending the Penguins. We have Sixers Celtics tonight. We've been talking about it all day today. And this next 25 or so minutes is going to be very busy, Johnny, in such a great way. We may have one very special guest on coming up in a little bit. But first, we already have a special guest lined up. And we want to play it again. We played it for you earlier. We played the call from Tim Saunders here on The Fanatic. We played the call of Kenny Albert from TNT. But last night on NBC Sports Philadelphia, great job as always, Jim Jackson and Scotty Hartnell. 0-0, overtime. And almost at the end of overtime period number 1, Porter Martone misses the shot. And you're going, oh no, is this going to be the moment where the Penguins end it and we got to go to a game 7? And then there was Cam York.
Michkov back to York. York Arista. Cam York from distance. And the Flyers are on their way to the second round. And it's a beautiful thing.
It
That
was a beautiful
call.
thing. It was a beautiful call. It was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful scene. It was beautiful to see Cam York chuck his stick, over the board, so over the glass, and everybody was okay.
You didn't get hit with it.
Everybody's good. Everybody's happy. And joining us now, the man that did that call for NBC Sports Philadelphia, our man Jim Jackson joins us. Jim, first and foremost, man, good morning and great call. That was awesome last night.
Thanks. You just don't want to screw those up, guys. And it was a great moment. Brought me back to the days when the Flyers were creating those moments on a pretty regular basis. And thankfully, no lawsuits, as Cam York said. It's hard to stick into the crowd.
Yeah, no lawsuits, which is great. So, look, one of our big things that we keep on talking about is the rebirth of Flyers fandom. Not that many people just disappeared. It's just the buzz wasn't there. It's been a long time. So I love that you had to raise your voice extra loud for that call because the building was rocking so much. How cool has that been for you, just this experience, the 3 games so far on home ice?
Yeah, it's been tremendous. I think I first noticed the rise in enthusiasm when Martone scored that overtime game winner for his first goal back on Easter against Boston. The place went nuts, and it was like that had a different volume to it. And then, of course, the Carolina game where they clinched the playoff spot in the shootout was craziness, and now all 3 playoff games, that place has been nuts. So it is great. I mean, you talked about how the buzz had gone away, and it had, but I always knew it was there. In going around doing events, not as much the social media aspect of it as much as actually being out among fans, golf tournaments, seminars, whatever, round tables, wherever I was bumping into fans and around groups of fans, the carnival. I always knew the passion was there. They just needed something to let them show that passion, and this team has obviously given them that in spades here over the last month and a half. So it's been fun to see. I knew that passion was there, and I knew that it would explode, and it certainly has.
Jim, what do you think is really tangible that you've seen out of that Pittsburgh series that's going to help them against Carolina?
Well, I think this is all about learning lessons for this team. And a lot of times when you're learning lessons, you lose. You have to lose to learn those lessons. They are fortunate enough to get through last night with a win, and I think learn a lesson about how tight and how much tension there is, the drama, all of that in a playoff series, especially when you get into elimination games. And you have to experience it. I mean, when you think about it, last night's game, the Penguins have 3 first-ballot Hall of Famers, maybe a 4th that could go to the Hall of Fame. They have 4 or 5 multiple cup winners, 3 that have won 3 cups. Their experience over the Flyers, the level is ridiculous. It was almost 10-1 in terms of playoff games. Flyers had 5 players dressed last night that had ever played a Game 6 of the playoffs. So it was a vast difference, and I think that showed in the third period and overtime that the Flyers were somewhat tentative. The Penguins were really going for it. They were also the team that had to win, obviously, or the season was over. But I really think the Flyers were kind of treating last night like that, too, because going back to Pittsburgh for Game 7 was not an option I think they wanted to really deal with. So I think they learned a lot about that last night. They've learned a lot about things throughout the push to the playoffs and then through this series. And so they can take that into the next series. It's only going to get tougher. Carolina is a machine in terms of their checking and their puck possession and getting the pucks at the net. Rod Brind'Amour, even when they came in here late in the season and they had 6 or 7 guys out of the lineup, the team still looked like a machine. He's got this team really well coached, and it's going to be even tougher. There's going to be even less space than there was at times against Pittsburgh in the last 2 or 3 games. So it only gets tougher as you move along. But these are things that they have to learn. This is a very young team, and they're getting great hockey lessons here. It's only going to help them as they move along in this rebuild that is obviously moving on to another step.
Jim, in your view, who needs to be the X factor on this Flyers team against Carolina?
Well, I mean, the easy answer is Dan Vladar because he's going to see a lot of pucks. Carolina always outshoots its opponents. They fire from all angles, and so he's going to most likely be busy. It would be a big surprise if he's not. So that's an easy answer. I mean, he was the X factor, obviously, last night. He's been just tremendous. I think most of the year I would have called him more solid, steady, but last night he was obviously spectacular. I don't think he's had to. They don't give up that many shots, the Flyers, they did last night, but they don't usually give up a lot of shots. So it's not like the goaltending, Dan or Sam Harrison, when he's in there, they have to be spectacular on a nightly basis. He did last night, but not normally. But I think against Carolina, he is going to see a lot of shots. So he's the easy answer. But, I mean, if you go beyond that, I think they're going to need some of their veteran guys to produce. Owen Tippett, Travis Konechny, these guys. The young guys, I think, will contribute here and there, but you have to expect some growing pains with those guys. Some of the vets maybe can step up and supply some goals. But make no mistake about it, it's very tough to look good against Carolina. They're just in your face all the time. So there's going to be, I think, periods of time where the Flyers are going to be bottled up in their own zone. That's just the way it is with Carolina, and you have to withstand it. And I think last night was a real good test for them because that was what Pittsburgh was doing in the third period in the overtime, and the Flyers were able to withstand it and get the W. So maybe they can do it against Carolina. And I will say this, hey, Flyers played 4 games against the Canes. All 4 went to overtime. The last one, yes, Carolina did not have their full lineup, but the first 3 they did. And all 3 games, the Flyers could have easily won. They all went to overtime or shootout before Carolina won. So they're not that far away from Carolina. I'm just saying it's going to be a messy series in terms of the aesthetic look to it, because I don't think it's going to be something where you're going to see the Flyers spending tons and tons and tons of time in the offensive zone. Carolina just doesn't allow you to do that.
Jim, we'll be listening. It was fantastic. I'm glad that you got to live that throughout the entire series for the Flyers. It's great to see it back at the Xfinity Mobile Arena.
And Jim, you're welcome to come on and talk with us since we're not going to be able to hear your fine work.
Exactly. So whenever you want to join us.
That was it for us last night. So it's Timmy and Fridge the rest of the way. But yeah, anytime you guys want to talk, I'm here. I got not much else to do but just watch and talk now. So,
well, that sounds good.
Let me know when you need me.
Well, we'll be talking. Well, we can't wait, Jim. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
There is Jim Jackson from NBC Sports
Which
Philadelphia.
I think sucks, by the way.
Yeah, no, it absolutely
I hate the policy of
I know.
That they don't allow that to happen.
It does. Well, you know what doesn't suck?
What?
Coming up next, we mentioned that there was going to be a very special guest. Rick Tocchet, the head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers, will be joining us coming up next.
And I warn you, don't tell him, are you happy to be there?
I am going to ask him that question to start.
Oh.
What would you say to somebody that is celebrating that we're just happy to be there?
Oh.
I wouldn't mind hearing some jam out of Tocchet to start the interview.
They jam a microphone somewhere.
Rick Tocchet joins us coming up next to celebrate. Well, we are. Job's not done yet for him. It's Kincaid and Sal Tunis, 97.5, The Fanatic.
Kincaid and Sal Tunis, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
You heard it's Sixers Celtics Game 6 tonight. Can they force a Game 7, which will be Saturday? Just like the Xfinity Mobile Arena was rocking last night, I imagine more of the same tonight. And joining us now, Johnny and Andrew Tacheko in studio with us today, the head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers, Rick Tocchet. Last night was an incredible scene at the Xfinity Mobile Arena. And I want to start off this interview one way, John, because I'm sure he's going to love to hear this. Hey, Rick, are you just happy to be there?
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a lot of people saying we're just happy to be here. And I imagine that that's not the message coming from the head coach.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're happy, but we're not happy to be here. We have a shot. I know people, we're going to probably be less than 3.8% in this series, which we kind of love, and it's going to be a tough sled. I mean, listen, Carolina's a terrific team, well coached. But you don't get opportunities like this. So the happy to be here is probably not something that we're thinking about. We're just thinking about, hey, we have a chance to, at the first game, we're going into Carolina and try to win that first game and see where it goes.
Rick, I got to watch you be a part of the youngest team ever to make the Stanley Cup Finals back in 1985. What does this team bear any kind of resemblance to that team?
Yeah, great question. I think for me, the closeness, the 8-9 years for my first stint with Philadelphia, probably the closest group I've ever been with ever, and I think I get the same vibes. Real close group. You can tell that they hang out. There's always packs of guys. There's no 2 or 3 guys. There's always a pack of guys. Before the games, they have a lot of fun. There's just a lot of good stuff with them, and I really believe the closest this team got us through the series. I mean, listen, Pittsburgh came on the last 2-3 games. I just really think the closeness got us through this series, and hopefully we can just draw some energy off that.
Rick, Dan Vladar rose to the occasion last night, and nothing new for him. But from your perspective, in terms of his mental resolve, what really equips him to be able to deliver in these high leverage moments?
Yeah, I'm so proud of him. Like, obviously, he was in Calgary, more backup role, and he always knew he had it in him. He probably, I guess, I don't even know if he had other opportunities. Probably did, but he bet on himself to come here. Knew there was an opportunity to try to get the number 1 role. What I like about his resolve, the 2 games we lost, the last 2 games before we won last night, like, he was blaming himself for, the games. And I'm like, are you out of your mind? That's the sort of, how do you not want to play for this guy if you're a player? Where this guy's taking a bullet for the players, that's what I love about him, and that's his resolve. And he's been like that all year. He doesn't have a letter on his chest, but he could definitely have a letter on his chest the way he leads with our team.
Rick, take us inside the locker room after the third period came to an end. You just dropped the last 2 games. If the Penguins win in overtime, you're going back to Pittsburgh, Game 7. So what was the message like? Who was speaking? What was everything going on before you went back onto the ice for overtime?
Well, I think honestly, for a coach, like, when you have a young team listen, there's tons of pressure. You're going into overtime. Our first overtime, it's probably most of our team first playoff overtime ever. I had to be calm. I wanted them to enjoy it, have fun. So my demeanor was kind of a little bit more, hey, let's have fun type of thing. I don't think I going in there and giving a big speech and making them more nervous, especially when you have a young team. So that was my mindset. And then hopefully, and I haven't talked to the players about what was said after, but I'm sure Kurz and a couple of the guys were keeping the young guys calm and relaxed. That's the key in a high-pressure situation, is trying to keep young guys relaxed and go play the game. Because, if you play tense, and we played a little tense in overtime. I mean, you got to give Pittsburgh credit. They had the puck a lot in overtime. I think we were a little bit just happy of just throwing pucks out instead of trying to, hold on to pucks. But that's something we'll learn. I mean, if we get another playoff overtime in the future, maybe we'll handle it a little bit different, and the growth for the young guys in those situations you experience. So, listen, I'm just so happy for the young guys, the growth. They get the experience, the Mitchkoffs, all these guys, the first time ever, only their first or second year in the league, to be at a playoffs is big for them and their growth and experience.
Rick, speak about the performance of Matvei Michkov last night. I thought he had a tremendous game, especially coming off the fact that he had to sit and watch Game 5. What did you think of his performance?
Yeah, I think he had some really good chances there. Listen, I know people make a big deal, and, he's one of the young guys, and sometimes you hit a wall as a young guy, and sometimes taking a break, watching, spending time with coaches at practice the day before goes a long way. It happened to Barks, it happened to Bump, and it's, Mitch is no different, and I think, that's what you can do. You analyze the game, and he did some stuff, I think, from watching the game. So, yeah, it was obviously a great assist on the goal. That backhand to Yorkie was a clutch play by him.
Rick, you mentioned the importance of keeping young players relaxed. In your experience, what has proven to be some of those effective methods?
For me, when you go in, it's don't say a lot of tactical stuff, because if you start giving tactics, I think that's when guys freeze up. You don't play the white. You just try to play shift to shift. It's from experience. I try to tell the guys, and I said, when you're tense out there, if you talk the shift before, it helps you relax. And like I said, you need your veterans to help you out too, and I think they do that for me.
Rick, let's talk about Matvei Michkov. Michkov, healthy scratch, comes back, and then all of a sudden, that's a big part of it. What about some of the other young players that are going through this first playoff series where, like you said, you're learning a lot? So Michkov, he learned. Porter Martone got his first taste. How important has this first round series been for those guys?
Yeah, it's honestly, it's huge. It's like, honestly, say we don't make the playoffs. Obviously, these guys are going to be good hockey players. They're going to develop, but just being in the situation, the last 20 games, we've been playing this playoff hockey like this for 2 months. We've had the throttle down, and what I like sometimes, some games when you have to throttle down, you got to be a resilient team. You might not have your A game, and as a young player, from my experience, when they don't have their A game, they because you hit the wall, they play their D game or their C game. I think our young guys, when they don't have their A game, I'm seeing a B game come out of them, and I don't want to confuse people when I'm saying that, but it goes a long way. Athletes don't have their best night. Sometimes you don't have your legs. Sometimes things don't go your way. But if you can be resilient, hang in there, contribute in other ways, that's the sign of a good experienced team. And I think last night was a good example of it. I think part of the game, I thought we liked our game. There's parts where we were kind of getting packed in and trying to be resilient, but I could tell guys were doing the right things, even though maybe they didn't have their legs. So that's the growth I like to see for the young guys, and you could see that the last couple of months.
Little trash talk between you and Rod Brindamore before the series offline?
Yeah, Roddy's a hell of a coach. I played with him. You know, Rod. He's got the Rod the Bod. The nickname.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, listen, we'll go out in our own way, and it's friends after. It's
Exactly.
Always, you know what I'm saying? There's going to be no. Trust me, we're not talking.
I know that.
That's awesome. Well, look, congratulations. Round one win. But like you said at the beginning, you're not saying you're just happy to be here. You're looking for more, and we'll be watching. Can't wait for this next series.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for the
Thanks,
support.
Coach.
Thanks, Rick.
Coach Rick Tocchet joining us here on Kincaid and South Tunis, man.
He was a guy who, as a player, appreciated tough coaching, and he knows how to deliver it with a much softer edge. He can coach tough, but still be. He's learned the best.
Well, like we talked about earlier, like he was not afraid to sit one of the players that everybody's got jerseys of.
Mm-hmm. To learn, and he got him, but he got him right back in the lineup.
And there are some players in this city, and not just this city, in sports in general, that would not be able to handle that well.
You know why, though? I think because the players know Rick Tocchet is in it with them. I think they know that he's in it for their best interest, and I think Mishkov understands he's trying to make me better. And last night, Matvey had a much better game than a lot of his teammates. And that was good. He bounced back strong.
He played with some jam.
Good club.
Dude. He played with some jam.
I'm glad you didn't do that with Tocchet. I'm glad you didn't do any of your hockey.
I don't know if Rick could keep up.
I'm glad you didn't use any of the hockey cliches.
You got an apple yesterday.
Good club.
Matvey, you got an apple. It's an assist, in case you guys are wondering.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to teach
stop
people.
Stop it with the apple. Yeah, it's really stop it with that.
All right. Well, Andrew.
You didn't have your apple this morning, by the way.
I did.
Oh, I didn't see it. I just saw your PB.
I had it earlier. 721 apple, 921 peanut butter jelly. Because I am going to Dover Motor Speedway after this.
You're a lucky man. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Big news.
So Ricky Bowe's been endorsing the Dover Motor Speedway.
Sure.
But he can't go to the event today because he's got this thing called Unfiltered at 2:00. And Steve Simons, one of our sales guys, goes, "Hey, do you like NASCAR?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "Oh, man. All right. I need somebody that would get into the car with a professional driver around the track." I was like,
Brad Keselowski? Are you kidding me?
I was like, hell yeah, man.
I'm in.
I'm up for a good time.
In fact, drive like Keselowski to Dover.
Well, I am supposed to be there at 11.
Right now, get on the road.
All right, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Why am I going to die? Goodbye, everyone. Everybody have a great day. Middays with Mark's next.